Hey folks, MasakoX here. Now that we're a few episodes into Daima and you've been sitting on the fence waiting for an opportunity to binge watch some episodes and to catch up even faster, you can go and check out my reviews right here because I've done every single one. Now, even though I would like to tell you that I basically shouted myself hoarse by the fact that this episode had so much good stuff to say about it, I can't unfortunately say that. It's just down to the things you have to expect when you have children. So you do get sick quite a lot. But one thing I was not sick of was this episode, episode 12. Oh my goodness. It managed to actually give us something that everyone has been clamoring for, people have been speculating, but now is actually part of the Dragon Ball lore. Vegeta gets Super Saiyan 3. And even though people might be thinking that, oh, come off it, why would Vegeta be showing that off? Well, this goes down to one of the laws or one of the guidebooks or many mumblings and speculative thoughts that have been going around the community as to why Vegeta has never shown off Super Saiyan 3 before. And it all comes down to the fact that he supposedly had mastered Super Saiyan 3, but chose not to use it on the account that it was simply not conducive in an actual battle, one that actually goes down to one's survival. And therefore he decided to mainly focus on mastering even further and surpassing the peak of Super Saiyan 2, which is something we did see as well. And we were all speculating about that with Goku against the third Tamagami, but actually I completely forgot. We completely did not see in that fight any of the zappy zaps. Whereas with Vegeta inside the Kraken, yes, we did. We definitely saw some of that, so therefore he actually used all three Super Saiyan forms that are currently known at the time of Dragon Ball Daima's existence, which is right before Dragon Ball Super Battle of Gods arc and immediately after Boo. So we've had a little bit of a time skip where Vegeta has actually been able to master Super Saiyan 3 after being made aware that Kakarot could do it too. And he was actually able to do it, and he looks incredibly badass. He did not say a single word. He didn't say a single word. He just kept his arms crossed. It was absolutely epic. And I would say that was the kind of fight that you would expect from Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta. And I know I went straight into it immediately, that some people might be complaining about spoilers, but you know what? I don't care on this occasion. Dragon Ball Daima needs to be seen right now, irrespective of dubs, because it is that important to Dragon Ball story. And this episode gave us everything in terms of what people would really want and hope that Daima could provide. Aside from the adventure and the lore stuff, although it did have some of that as well. And I will get into that in a moment because, let's be real, people wanted to talk about Vegeta Super Saiyan 3. It's just one of those moments, It's one of those moments in the Dragon Ball fandom that people have been wanting and you actually get. And it's just as cool as people would hope. It doesn't have to be long or protracted or it outstayed its welcome. No, it didn't at all. Because Super Saiyan 3 finally gets a win. Because it never got one, really. You might argue that Goku versus Fat Boo when he went Super Saiyan 3 was technically a win, but Goku didn't see it through. Whereas with the second Tamagami, that actually went through to the moment when the second Tamagami gave up. And I do wonder about that because this is where we can get into the actual lore, because Neva was right there. And on first glance, I definitely thought that there was something a bit fishy as to what Neva was doing with the strength of the second Tamagami and amping it up even further than what the Tamagami itself could do. Because as we see with the first and the third, when it gets heated up, it glows at the top of its torso orange. Whereas with the second Tamagami, it went purple. So it was actually being extended, granted more power by Neva, which makes you think about the strength and potential of Neva himself, because he was able to amp up the strength of that guardian of the Dragon Ball to make sure that the limits of this character, Vegeta, could be tested. And at the same time, I suppose that the actual question that was given, the final test that the Tamagamis give, was made easier because I reckon that Neva, the point of that was not to test the acumen and the intelligence of whoever got the Dragon Ball. He switched things around to make it harder in terms of actual strength and fighting ability, and it doesn't really matter so much about the question. It was made as easy as possible, and
I think that was part of the joke. He made it as easy as he possibly could without making people question it, because they have now come to assume this is what the Tamagami does. So he just made it this really silly thing about, Johnny has this many biscuits, how many will they have at the end? But many people were thinking, oh no, Vegeta's not really good with these. He's really, really stupid. He's not going to get it right. But even Bulma was doubting him. But actually, no. He is actually smarter than people give credit for. And it was really interesting that Goku couldn't do it because it's math. It's that kind of problem solving, and Goku's not good at that. And it really goes back to an old video I did back in the day about, is Goku really smart? And about 7 types of intelligence. And in the 2 most common types of intelligence that we as a human society really pin a lot of value to, including mathematical intelligence, Goku really comes up short. But in other aspects of intelligence, Goku outshines us all. So that video, I'll leave a link to it in the pinned comment. Even though it's quite old, I think it's still quite relevant because it really goes to show the different types of intelligence are really, really evident in this episode. Because Goku, even though he managed to actually beat the 3rd Tamagami in the test because he actually had a really good amount of cunning and, of course, speed and actually seeing, sleight of hand, when it comes to mathematical problems and critical thinking, no. Vegeta was able to outshine him in that regard. And that shows why, as a team, they are really, really good together. And having Super Saiyan 3 on top as the icing of the cake and the cherry, absolutely brilliant. So I think a lot of people are going to be really, really happy about this. And I really think that Neva amping up the power of the Tamagami is really going to lead people thinking that, hey, maybe Neva wants this group to win and make sure that he can take the Demon World Dragon Balls away from Goma, even though, and I'll get to this in a moment, they were able to succeed Arinsu and her crew in getting the first Dragon Ball. But it wasn't Majin Duu who did it, it was Majin Kuu. But I definitely think that Neva actually wants the Dragon team to win because he sees what they're all about. He sees that they are good people and he wants to give them the Dragon Ball because it might actually enact change where ideally his dream, as was made clear in the previous episode, of maybe opening up the demon world, so that means people could come back, including the remaining Glins and the Namekians maybe, so that means you can have free access to the demon world. That's pretty much what Neva wants. He's keeping the 2nd demon world nice, clean, spick and span, a nice place to live. So that means maybe some Namekians would come back. And these people, he's now thinking, maybe these might be the facilitators I'm looking for. Now, we are really, really quite certain that Neva is not a bad person. Yeah, his motives and basic thoughts might be a little bit questionable and dubious, and the way he gets about things might be a little bit weird, but I do think he is a good person, good-natured, and he wants the best for everybody. He wants the heroes to win. And we did do a discussion about this earlier in the week, about Neva's origins and how he might not be evil, and how maybe he might be the ultimate Akira Toriyama self-insert character. I'll leave a link to it up top. But for now, Majin Duu versus the 1st Tamagami. Now, as expected, the fight continued, and Duu was able to continually progress, to really amp up how, like with Majin Buu, back in the Buu saga, as they fought, they gained in potential, and they gained in strength and ability, and really starting to hone in on exactly what they can do. And the gamut of abilities and skills that Duu was able to actually showcase to all of us is pretty much exactly the same as Majin Buu, which would make sense because not only was the cyber seed planted a little bit deeper to extract more of the potential of the essence of Majin Buu, but it just became ultimately clear that what we would see would be just the awakening of Majin Duu and really seeing the capabilities of it. But what we were able to see also is that Duu and Kuu, they are the best brothers. They work together, they look out for one another. I mean, Duu will be the muscles, Kuu is the brains and brawn. That old adage, it's so obvious with these two because they work together so well. Because sure enough, even though Duu won out against the 1st Tamagami when it came to the test of mental arithmetic, no, Duu didn't get it. Not even close. Although, as many people would say, including Arinsu, they would say, oh, it's a scam, it's impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's just that Arinsu, even though she is quite intelligent, is not intelligent as Kuu. Kuu is the smartest one in the room when it comes to mathematical intelligence, something that we humans, as I mentioned earlier, really pin a lot of value to. So Kuu is not just some useless comedy relief who's dumb but good-natured. He's good-natured and really, really intelligent. And that was the trade-off, is that you had a Majin who was really easy to control and quite capable, and also kind of strong as well, because the Tamagamis, as we have touched upon in multiple reviews, the power cap, as you might say, would be maybe Super Perfect Cell, the one that fought Gohan right at the end of their battle. You know, the Kamehameha beam struggle. That is the power, the average power, I would say, of the Tamagami. And Duu was able to surpass that slightly. So you would say that maybe his power is coming up to the likes of maybe Fat Buu. So we are actually see a progression from the Cell Saga, whereas with Kuu, it pretty much matches or is slightly below that. But the combination of these two, which is making me think these two are going to fuse into something quite incredible, smart and strong. It's really something I'm pinning my hopes on, that these two work together in some shape or form, that they actually managed to come up with the goods. Kuu came up with a mathematical problem and then whispered it to his brother, and the brother dutifully obliged after his brother got him chocolate, because much like with Majin Buu, he is driven by food, but it's even more important that you give him the food because it unlocks more power. So it's almost like with each chocolate bar, Majin Duu gets all the more powerful, and that bond between Duu and Kuu gets stronger because there is trust, and therefore Su's not the one in control, really. It's Kuu. Majin Kuu is the person able to control Majin Duu, but not in the traditional sense of master and slave. No, it's brothers. There's that link, because I bet you that if Majin Kuu comes to harm or is endangered or even killed, then Majin Duu will fly off the handle, much like what happened with Majin Buu when B was shot by Van Zant, that absolute jerk. Then he will maybe completely lose it. And we might get into this cycle of different transformations. We might get good Duu and evil Duu. And then the process will continue with multiple people being absorbed. So we might even get some kind of Su absorption with Majin Duu or something like that. Su or something like that. Or I don't know. This is all speculation at this point. But it's really fascinating that both of these fights going on at the same time, even though they had the same outcome with the Tamagamis losing, we got really good understandings of everyone's character, that Vegeta has been training and that he has been able to improve. We've now seen Super Saiyan 3, and now we can actually get into that real solution that Vegeta knows how to go Super Saiyan 3. He is capable of it. Why didn't he use it against Beerus? Well, short answer is that he deemed it of no worth whatsoever. He must have realized in that battle that if he kept going longer and longer and longer, had it been right at the beginning of the fight with the Tamagami, it might not won out. He might have fallen out of the power, as he saw with Goku against Kid Buu. He knows about the stamina drain, and now he's tried it himself. So there you go. That's the explanation. It's been now put into the actual story, because Daima is canon, and I don't care what you think of it. Usually I'm quite tolerant, but no, Daima is connective tissue between the Buu saga and Super. It connects the two together, and it's something you watch after the Buu saga to really add more depth to that particular arc, and it prepares you for what you can expect in Super in the talks regarding Demon Worlds, multiple universes, multiple Supreme Kais. It primes you ready for when Beerus drops the bomb regarding universes to our characters, because even though there is a little bit of confusion about Shin, what does he know, what doesn't he know? Do the characters know about multiple universes? Because Goku, I think it was made slip in a previous episode that Universe 7 was the thing, but maybe it's something, as he's seen before, that he doesn't really pay attention to things that aren't relevant. That's something that maybe the showrunners can use to their advantage, saying, oh, Goku forgot, or Goku wasn't really paying attention at the time, and that would actually be believable. But this is just something that is making me think that Daima is really going to be showing us something quite interesting. And people might be concerned that the supposed runtime of 20 episodes might be meaning that we are going to be rushing into the final conclusion. Well, considering that now all 3 Tamagamis have been defeated and it really just took 4 or 5 episodes, that makes sense because now we've got the final maybe 8 to 10 episodes to really prime us ready for the first demon world. And even though technically it's meant to be the smallest of the 3 demon worlds, it really does give you some pause for thought. What could be done now? What's going to happen? Is there going to be some sort of challenge for what is to come in the next episode, episode 13? Well, even though it's called Surprise and the preview does imply that it might be a relatively light episode in terms of action, it might be important in terms of establishing a little bit more story, connective tissue to get into the 3rd and final act of the story. So that is something to consider here because we've had 2 really good episodes which have been really action heavy. It's now really important to kind of just bring it down a little bit. So that means it can promise for the final battle, the final sequence, as we then get to the ultimate battle between Goku, Vegeta, Duu, Kuu. How's that going to play out? Because one thing's absolutely certain now is that Arisu has effectively been rumbled. There were smatterings of doubt from Goma in previous episodes, but now it's beyond doubt because Arisu has been seen to be fighting the Tamagami and they've won. The Dragon Balls are no longer protected by the Guardians that Neva created, and Neva had some part in helping, but that has completely gone over the head of Goma. He has no clue that Neva has actually technically betrayed him, whereas with Arisu, no. I think it's quite obvious. Goma is going down the train of thought that, yeah, Arisu is up to something. She's about to try and usurp me or something. I don't trust her. I'm now going to have a little tantrum, which makes me definitely think that even though Goma probably has some sort of strength, he is not going to be effective, really, without some sort of intervention or help. Or maybe this might be a bit of a slip. Maybe this is something that Toriyama wants us to think, that he's completely useless, that he has got no real strength. He's all talk, but no bite. Maybe he might actually prove us all wrong. So that's something to keep in the back of your head, although I doubt that Toriyama will put that many twists into the story. I doubt it. But I certainly think that this is a really interesting point where Arisu thinks that she's all that, whereas actually she's not. Neva is the smartest one in the room when it comes to the baddies in that group in the first demon world in the palace. Neva is pulling the strings here, absolutely, but it's for the betterment of the Dragon team. And I did find it really weird that Pansy found that the ship wasn't working and she just simply connected a wire and then they were able to go. That was a little bit suspicious. And something that's been made very, very clear in classes to do with storytelling, you don't include in a story a scene if you're not going to be using it later on. That little bit of sabotage, is it something that Glorio did to maybe slow them down? But then Pansy was able to actually get past it quite easily. It's something that we're not quite sure about yet, but don't ignore that scene. It will become important later. As with the Medibugs. The Medibugs are actually becoming a bit of a joke thing here, almost the anti-sensu bean, because I don't think I've seen anyone else other than Goku use it, and he's almost becoming a peddler for them. And, oh yeah, there's something to include here. Hibis, the victory dance, I definitely think that that was a nod to the Ginyu Force because Vegeta does not want to see it because he's seen it all the time thanks to the Ginyu Force. But anyway, episode 12, we will definitely have a more in-depth discussion coming in the next couple of days, but this is all I can think of right now, and I don't think my throat can actually take any more. But oh my goodness, this was a really good episode. I think surely if you're not on the Daima hype train now, you will be right now because it had the battles, it had a little bit of lore information, it had everything. And I've been saying that last few episodes because Daima's really getting into its stride right now. And if you've not been catching up with Daima, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And you can check out my episode 1 review and continue forward right here from this link.